better. I hope you all enjoyed the lunch and the view and the sun. And now we're about to move on for the motion for a resolution by the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs 3. And the topic reads as follows. Green investment gap. It is estimated that in Europe alone, an additional 180 billion in investment will be needed yearly to meet the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. How should the EU seek to bridge the private investment gap and use the financial system as a tool to reach its climate target? Is there a member of the proposing committee willing to deliver a proposition speech? Econ 3, you are recognized. You have 2 minutes, and I'm going to tap the mic when I'm going to ask you to conclude.
Dear President, Honorable Board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. My name is Ela, and as a member of the Econ 3 Committee, I will be talking about the green investment gap. Over the past few days, we have been tackling several issues which all originate from the same problem, climate change. It is something which cannot be avoided, but we must try to diminish it by adapting to its consequences with serious actions. Despite the fact that the private investment gap has not been only discussed, but also very much acknowledged, the Member States have not been complying with the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. Therefore, we strongly recommend to the European Union to implement the proposed EU taxonomy for environmentally sustainable activities in all EU Member States. Sadly, the general public is not widely informed on how the financial system works and how their money is further invested, thus lessening their likelihood to choose greener options of investments. We believe that by incorporating a standard-level economic education into the general education curriculum, while also instructing financial intermediaries to actively inform private investors about their ability to affect the investment pathway of their capital, it would greatly contribute to lenders being aware of their power to invest into green finance. Even though companies in the EU are supposed to disclose the information on their environmental impact under the EU Non-Financial Reporting Directive, that is not monitored, nor is it specified exactly what information should be disclosed. Furthermore, the directive only applies to large companies. In regards to this, we call upon the European Commission to amend the directive in a way which would help prevent greenwashing, a very serious issue that reduces transparency and tricks people into putting their money towards into non-sustainable investments. I hope you find our resolution and the solutions we found as suitable as we do, and we are looking forward to an interesting and constructive debate. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ella, for a perfectly Swissly timed proposition speech. Now it's my utmost pleasure to open the floor for position speeches. Is there any committee willing to deliver a position speech? I'm going to get the ones from AFET and Econ 2. You can approach the podium.
Ladies first. Oh, what a gentleman.
You have 2 minutes, and I'm going to tap the glass when you have 30 seconds left.
Thanks so much. Okay. Dear Sister Committee Econ 3, please don't take this personally, but I'm confused about your priorities here. Your job is to attract private investment. You stress the absolute necessity of this in ICA. Along with a variety of buzzwords such as greenwashing, you appear to recognize the problem of companies trying to appear woke in their stance on the environment. However, Econ 3, I cannot congratulate you on solving these ICs. A business has one aim and one aim only, and it is to make a profit, especially in the private sector, because they do not receive government welfare grants. How they do this is to typically save money in any way possible in order to reach maximum efficiency. It is selfish, and the ways they can do it cannot always be environmentally beneficial. I'm aware of this, but this is the way of corporate life. OC 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 make wonderful suggestions, but they're simply not realistic. Asking a business to simply change their approach to a currently less profitable way, sustainability, will not work. Businesses have employees, budgets, projects, and many more mundane spending activities. Asking nicely for taxonomy doesn't work. It hasn't worked over a grand scale so far. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in today, with this motion being spoken of today. A soft stance doesn't work on this. You have to think like a businessman to appeal to a businessman, or a woman, sorry. I believe a potential amendment of offering financial incentive for these businesses to reach a more sustainable level would have an overall more successful rate. Award those businesses who want to make a change, and once it becomes clear to others that, is that the tab? Oh, sorry. Once it becomes clear to others that because of the incentive offered by the Commission, that it's actually more profitable to adapt more green-keeping ways, the private investment gap will slowly, but very quickly start to close. This process will not happen overnight, but I do feel that with the proper and right investments and commissions and incentives, we can achieve an overall better result that will benefit us all as the EU. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be building upon what she has just stated as well, but also taking a little bit more of a constructive approach. So honorable board, distinguished guests, there's none left, fellow delegates, thank you first of all to Econ 3 for the work you have done. I think personally I agree with some of the measures that you've brought up on classifications of investments and transparency, so I greatly appreciate those aspects. However, I don't think the resolution tackles all of the issues that it really urgently needs to. So, as well as Emer has talked about earlier, the private sector needs more incentives to actually get moving and come aboard on solving the issues to move towards the goals of the Paris Agreement. So, this week I actually read that the European Investment Bank announced they want to only invest in fossil-free projects. This illustrates how public sector is also moving forward, but it's not only the public sector that has to move forward. We need the private sector and everybody on board to reach the goals. So, about the private sector, in 2009, a survey on European financial institutions, so including hedge funds and private equity, was done. And it turned out they care more about technological reliability than political measures such as subsidies or in the energy sector, energy taxes, because those are relatively short-term. So an idea could be to invest and innovate in, for example, funding incubators for green startups and research and development. But more importantly, in order to get the private sector involved, cooperation is key. So governments, banks, all the financial institutions should be cooperating. So through public-private cooperations, and through structured funds, it would reduce the risk for the private companies of their investment. Because of the shared risk structure, private companies would have more incentive to, with the public sector, invest in fossil-free or generally sustainable finance. I hope I could provide you with valuable feedback in the fight to get everyone on board and sail to new horizons in closing the green energy gap, green investment gap, sorry.
Thank you very much, Emer and Moritz, for your both position speeches, and I hope that hopefully everyone got the two sides of the coin of the Econ 3 resolution. Now I'm going to offer the proposing committee a chance to answer to those two position speeches. Econ 3, are you willing to answer them? Yes, you are, and you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Firstly, I would like to thank AFET and Econ 2 for the position speeches. In name of the Third Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, we are very happy to listen to your opinions and we'll take them into account throughout the debate. Regarding the question by Econ 2, you said that a soft stance does not work on this topic. However, we believe that we need to fight greenwashing to make efficient green investments. And when you referred about private companies, we are not specifically talking about private companies, but private investors. That means regular people who save for pensions, etc. And it is possible for the world to work in a sustainable way, and eventually we have to become sustainable. Doesn't matter whether the profit happens over short or long term. So for AFET, you asked, the private sector needs more incentives. Well, the European Investment Bank wants to invest in fossil fuel investments in 2009. So we are educating people on green funds and how to make them. Okay, so we are educating people on green funds and how they can make green investments and giving regular people rewards for investing green. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernardo. So now it's my pleasure to open the floor for the first round of the open debates. And the first point on the motion for resolution by the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs is going to come from the sister committee, Econ 1. You're recognized.
Hi, my name is Milica. So in order for private investors to invest into something, it needs to be demanded by consumers. So I wanted to ask you, if you want to use the financial system as a tool, why is there a lack of OCs tackling consumer demand for the green economy? If there was more demand for green economy and green businesses and their products, there would be a more supply of it and they would be more appealing to investors. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Milica. I think that the Committee on Foreign Affairs actually want to answer your question. Afet, you are recognized.
Aidan here from the Irish delegation. Thanks for recognizing me. I'm not sure whether the previous delegate fully understands that it's not solely consumer demand which causes things to gain traction, gain investment. I do feel that further research and development for other projects rather than just directly trying to play into consumer demand also plays a very important role.
Thank you very much, Afet. Before taking the next point, I'm going to ask the committee DR, but I think it's draw one to, yeah, without the post-it, we can have your full name. Now I'm going to take the next point from IMCO, followed by EMPL. IMCO, you're recognized.
Thank you. So regarding the OC7, basically reading the definition of taxonomy, right? Is it in the fact sheet? It seems to me that the ranking system you are suggesting to establish actually duplicates the taxonomy. So can you explain why such a bureaucracy is needed here? Thank you.
Thank you very much, IMCO. Now, as promised, we're going to go to EMPL, and then we're going to take a point up to the front from NV1.
I'm grateful you recognize me, Mr. Speaker. I would like to refer the OC7 to about the ranking system. The ranking system for the whole Europe wouldn't work because you would prefer developed countries because they already have the infrastructure and the resources for the climate change and not undeveloped one. Because I can say that because I'm from Croatia and I know that Croatia can go in the same system as Sweden because the Sweden would be prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, EMPL. And now, as promised, we're going to take the point from NV1, and then we're going to move all the way back to draw 1.
Thank you for recognizing me. I would like to draw your attention to ICB. Excuse me, but I can't agree with this point. I've had an experience in communication with large investors, including European businessmen also, and I can definitely say that they are mostly interested in long-term perspectives. They hold the commodity circulation in this way exactly developing a long-term strategy and improving the quality. That's why I doubt the need for this paragraph in the resolution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrei. And now, as promised, we're going to take the point from the Committee on Human Rights 1. Draw 1, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognition. So for the committee, I wanted to ask if the initiatives for investors to move away from unsustainable projects are weak at the best, and past being asked nicely, they have no reason to move away from the much more efficient, profitable fossil fuels. Also, I don't think that the resolution is targeting the Paris Agreement as it should. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana. Now we're going to take two last points for the first round of open debate. And the two last points are going to be from ITRE 3 and INTA. ITRE 3, you're recognized.
Hello, my name is Martin Lashtovica. I'm from ITRE 3 committee, and I would like to ask about your IC number 3. You should encourage the Council of EU for a proposal of regulation establishing the InvestEU. I just want to ask you how exactly, or what problem does it tackle? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Now we're going to take the last point, as promised, from the Committee on International Trade, INTA.
Thank you for recognizing me. I want to ask for clarification concerning OC number 3. According to the certain study published by Jacques Delors Institute, the InvestEU program, even if implemented with fullest, is going to alleviate only about 10% of the annual investment gap in sustainable infrastructure and generally in investment concerning sustainable development. I want to ask for clarification, how are you going to bridge the remaining 90% of the gap? And are you considering extending the financial scope of the program or considering proposing any other measures that would help us alleviate the remaining gap? Thank you.
Thank you very much, INTA. Now, as promised, we're going to give the opportunity to the proposing committee to answer this first round of open debate. Econ 3, are you willing to answer this first round? Yes, you are, and you're recognized.
Okay, so first we'll be addressing a point made by Committee Econ 1. We said that in order for private investors to invest in something, the consumers need to drive that interest. First of all, we will say that there is already an increasing demand in the market. What we need to ensure is that there is also an adequate supply to meet that demand. And the reason for a potential lack of demand is because investors don't know their opportunities, don't know that they can invest in green finance. And this committee tackles this problem by proposing many operative clauses that drive the incentive for investors to invest in green projects, and as well, they provide, we have some clauses about financial intermediaries who need to give advice to investors to inform them about their investment capabilities. Next up, we have the point made by IMCO, which said that the ranking system replicates the taxonomy, so we have more bureaucracy in this regard. First of all, we need to say at this point that the taxonomy does not duplicate the ranking system, but the ranking system is kind of based on the taxonomy. The ranking system is a scale from the least sustainable to the most sustainable economic activities. The taxonomy is something else. The taxonomy is a list of criteria. There are basically two criteria for an economic activity to be included in the taxonomy. The first criteria is for the economic activity to respect one of the 6 environmental principles, including climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. And the second one is to not do significant harm to each other, to another climate objectives. So from what we said in the resolution, we make it clear that it's not the same thing. The point made by Empel, they talked about the ICB about being interested in fossil fuels and short-term investments. That is not true because the ICB is interested in long-term investments, and definitely green finance investments constitute longer-term investments because they take into account the ESG factors, which are definitely something that we examine in the long term. The point made by Droit said that about the initiatives that the investors need. So we'd like to draw your attention to our clauses number 1 to number 3, in which we tackle these initiatives and we provide solutions as to how initiatives can be raised and how motivation can be raised for investors. And specifically with clause number C, we promote the establishment of the new InvestEU program, which is likely to generate 650 billion in additional investment, and definitely an amount from this investment can be used to breach the investment gap, which we have to tackle here. And the last point came from ITRE, and they asked for specific information about what the InvestEU program will tackle. So the InvestEU program will leverage EU budget guarantees to provide assistance to generate more investment, by tackling the investment needs, by providing guarantees to investors, and by doing that, it will provide more incentive and more motivation for investors to invest in green finance, because as we know, green finance is higher risk than other projects like coal and oil finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apostolos. Now, before opening the next round of open debate, we're going to try a new thing. Because from here, I do think that you could pay a slightly more attention during the open debate to the point said. So now, when you're going to say a point, you're going to have to stand up to make the point. Great? Let's try that immediately with back in the room with Dratu. Dratu, are you ready to stand up and make your point? Yes, you are. You're recognized.
Is this good? In OC2, the committee advises private investors to mainly invest in sustainable development. But in what way does the committee think that this OC is effective, as private investors will only invest in the most profitable option, even if it's not sustainable? Just advice won't make any difference.
Thank you very much, Dratu. Oh, NV2 is also willing to stand up. Oh, NV2, you're recognized.
Irene?
Can you please stand up? Yep.
So I would like to add something about the operating clause 2. I agree with the fellow delegate, and I would just like to add that it's just an advice, so most probably private investors are not going to follow that advice. We need stronger actions to be taken, as maybe a creation of a framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irini. Now we're going to, Empol's, as all wants a direct response, the direct response. Empol, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. I would disagree with saying that we should add conditioning private investors to I think that conditioning private investors to do something would actually have a negative impact on economy and could also reduce economic growth. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Empol, and please don't be. Thank you very much for your direct response. Now we're going to move to the second point of the second round of open debate, and it's going to come from ITRE the second. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. I have a question about OC number 7. How are you going to ensure that the ranking will be done correctly and won't be fake? Because greenwashing is a big issue, as you have mentioned. And don't you think it might make greenwashing a bigger of an issue? Like it might motivate companies to lie more and fake the greenness? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kezo. And also, I can suggest you to move the mic up in the air if you want to stand up so you don't have to lean too much. Now we're going to take a point from your sister committee, ITRE, the first. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. My question was about point OC number 10, and it's really simple, actually. How do you expect it to work? It's almost impossible to achieve this, if not impossible at all, due to the vastly difference of school systems in member states. I mean, for example, in Italy and in Germany, not every school has compulsory classes for economy. How do you expect this to function on a European level? And besides, don't you also think that you should implement like something to specify what standard level of economic education is? What do you define by standard?
Thank you very much, ITRE. Now we're going to take the next points from Econ 2 and followed by Libe. Econ 2, you're recognized.
My bad. Well, my name is Hanna, and I've got a question regarding the OC12, because as the OC12 speaks about the EU non-financial directive, I would like to ask why no action has been included regarding the fact that, quoting the Datamoran site, like the economic site, 12 countries in total have directly inserted the text of the directive into their national legislation. Thus, as it seems to be an important step to solving the problem, yet it is not implemented even by the half of the member states. And what is the committee's statement regarding that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Now, as promised, we're going to go just in front of you. Oh, Hannah, can you switch off the mic?
Yeah.
And before going to Libe, we have ITRE 1 who's willing to direct respond your point. ITRE 1, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. I would also like to agree, and I would like to point out that Clause 12, Part A, regardless of their size, referring to companies, is something that should be considered, because if we are taking into account the smaller companies, startups that just started their job, they're not in the position to invest in green technologies because they haven't reached the economies of scale. So maybe something should be changed or just deleted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ITRE 1. I'm going to recognize the direct response from IMCO. IMCO, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you. This is not actually very comfortable, but I'll try. So basically, yeah, about the SMEs, like with your resolution in Germany ignoring the SMEs, that was actually also pointed out in the position speech, I believe that this OC12 is ignoring SMEs the most because like this OC means that small companies that are more sustainable actually than the large companies have to carry this burden of bureaucracy sharing their detailed information on their business, and that means that this would hinder the establishment and empowerment of SMEs, meaning large companies get stronger, they get more power, meaning that they are polluting more, meaning that your resolution is doing the opposite thing that it should have done. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily, and very sorry for the discomfort. Now we're going to recognize the last point of this round of open debate, but as promised, it's going to go to Libe. Libe, you're recognized.
Thank you. Regarding OC number 8, I think it's a very good idea to try to direct the private capital by financial intermediaries to sustainable activities, but how should they be determined to make such a choice, knowing that their priority interest will certainly be maximizing the profit? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Libe. So now, as promised, we're going to offer the possibility to the proposing committee to answer this second round. Econ 3, are you ready to answer the second round of open debate? You're recognized.
Thank you for recognition. Thank you for that big amount of questions. So actually about the OC2, the OC2, we're talking about that investor, they won't necessarily only focus on private profit because it is called impact investing. Investors which do not want to invest in the more risky green sector can invest in less green companies with higher profit, but with the condition that the company will only receive the money if making sustainable changes. So, and again, about the OC2, we're talking about people, we're talking about new generation that according to the recent surveys, millennials and our generation, we are more likely to buy more sustainable products. So we are more likely to make changes and invest our money in green projects. And private investor, it's about actually power to invest, power to use our money in more sustainable way. Then the questions according to OC7. According to OC7, having an independent EU having an independent EU organ and making the list prevents the companies from blatantly lying, as EU has insight into their products and how sustainable it is. And about the next point, it would be beneficial for everybody to learn about economics. It's about education. Because in school, so that they can make smart decisions and use their money properly. It's also about disseminating knowledge about how the money invested and how the money are used. And the sixth one, 12th OC. So no further action is necessary as we achieve what we want to through make all companies transparent. About small companies, even small companies are unnecessary to monitor for the same reason as the big ones, because transparency is incredibly important. And about big companies, when the big companies have to prove that they are environmentally sustainable, that could also be profitable for them. And actually the extension of the EU eco-label ensure this. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nazari. Now we're going to open the third round of open debate. And we are going to start with the Committee on Human Rights. Draw one, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. My question is addressing greenwashing that we addressed already, but not in the sense that I'm asking for, because you addressed it in ICG and H, if I'm not mistaken, and it's still not really clear to me how you're going to prevent greenwashing. Thank you.
Thank you, draw one. Now we're going to take a point from the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs. Econ 1, you're recognized.
Thank you for being recognized. My name is Dimitris, and regarding OC number 2, seeing that there is no guarantees that the private investors will follow a sustainable policy, I would like to propose an amendment to seek for or create a body which will control private companies, because in that case, we could be more sure about their sustainability policy that they will follow in the future. And please set a specific time place for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Econ 1, for proposing a concrete amendment of the resolution. Now we're going to go all at the front with a point from NV1. NV1, you're recognized.
I'd like to add something to, I would request an addition to OC7. I think it's a good point, but you could add a traffic light system, and this traffic light system, if you score good on certain points like CO2 emission, so low CO2 emission, you could get subsidies, or the EU could assure investors, if they invest in it and it goes wrong, that they get like half of their money back, which will make it harder and will make this ranking and the traffic light system also a financial importance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, NV1. Now we're going to go right behind you to NV2. You're recognized.
Hi, my name is Becca. And my question is regarding the OC number 7. How would you, the ranking system make an impact? In which way will it help? And how will the private investors be contribute in the ranking system? Thank you.
Thank you very much, NV2. Now we're going to take the very last point of the third debate, which also is going to be the last round of open debate. So this is the very last point ever. And as we want to take a point that aims at the stars, we're going to recognize Afet. Afet, you're recognized.
Bearing in mind that the green sector is still in development and non-sustainable resources are yet more profitable, how will you guarantee that the proposed OC is a viable solution? The proposed OC is OC2. I'm sorry for not mentioning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afet. Now, is Victor from the proposing committee ready to answer the last round of open debate? Yes, you are. You're recognized.
I will thank you everyone for the interesting views. About the first one, I want to say that the extensions of the EU eco-label will limit greenwashing, and in addition, greenwashing is illegal, so the companies will be punished. For the next one, there can be guarantees, although your amendment will be very helpful. I'm afraid it falls out of the EU competence. But the third one, what are the proposing is a tier list very similar to your traffic light system. But the fourth, by MV2, about OC7, by having a ranking system, we can label funds so investors will know how green the fund they want to invest in are. About the fifth, from AFET, about OC2, I want to say that green investments are way more profitable in the long term as we are approaching peak oil and the demise of fossil fuels, with green sector being more and more dominant.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. So now we're going to give 1 minute to Econ 3 to decide on an amendment or not an amendment. Econ 3. Okay, everyone. I have the pleasure to announce that we do have an amendment from the proposing committee. This announcement is going to change a clause, and the clause in question is OC3. OC3 used to read as encourages the Council of the EU to adopt the proposal for regulation establishing the Invest EU program. Now it's going to read as encourages the Council of the EU to adopt the proposal for a regulation establishing the Invest EU program in order to incentivize private investors to choose greener options. So I'm going to read it one more time. Encourages the Council of the EU to adopt the proposal for regulation establishing the Invest EU program in order to incentivize private investors to choose greener options. Great. Now that we have the amendment, I'm going to propose to the proposing committee to deliver its summation speech. Econ 3, are you ready? Christian, you can come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. I'm going to tap the glass when you have 30 seconds and be swiftly on time, as you know.
Sure will. Okay. Dear President, Honorable Board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates, a giant heat dome over Europe is smashing temperature records. Europe suffers heat wave of dangerous, record-high temperatures. Europe's heat wave shatters national temperature records. These are 3 of dozens and dozens of articles commenting on the unseen heat wave in the past month. And while some of our allies in the West might find it convenient to deny the existence of climate change, here in Europe, we are feeling the threat. As it was set out by the Paris Agreement in 2015, we should limit and keep the temperature increase from pre-industrial times to no more than 1.5 degrees before the consequences are irreversible for humanity. The European Union has estimated that it would need 180 billion euros of additional investment per year to bridge the investment gap in green finance and achieve the 2030 climate target set out by the Paris Agreement. Herewith, our resolution aims to put in place more efficient incentives in the European private investment sector, as well as to ensure the private investors' awareness on their investment opportunities to bridge the gap. Not to mention that establishing a common taxonomy in the European Union, as well as ensuring that investors and financial intermediaries do not misuse through greenwashing and the lack of transparency is essential. It is exactly with these actions that the Committee of Econ 3 intends to bridge this large gap of green investments. Nevertheless, without any action, the future that we, the next generation, have envisioned for us and our children will not be one of roses. In only 20 to 30 years, it might already be too hot in the summer for us and our children to go to the beach. Not to mention that with this resolution, we can unfortunately not guarantee that the 2030 climate targets will be reached. But if you and your fellow delegates vote in favor of this resolution, at least we will still have a chance to diminish the effects of climate change and maybe, just maybe, return to Valencia in 20 to 30 years and enjoy a nice day on the beach with our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian, for this perfectly timed summation speech. Now what we're going to do is that I'm going to ask the chairpersons to gather the votes. So be ready to submit. Very important, do not submit the votes. So you just insert the numbers in the GA stats. You don't click on submit. You just raise the placard instead. Great. Jago, we delete your vote. Be ready to submit, don't submit. So, Econ 1, 2, 3 are ready. INTA is ready. Libe is ready. DRA 2 is ready. NV1 is ready. ITRE 1 is ready. DRA 1 is ready. IMCO. AFET. We're going to delete your votes that you submitted twice. So be ready to submit. Don't click on the button. Great. ITRE 3, ITRE 2. Where is Ample? Ample is not ready. NV2 is ready. Ample? Are you? Ample? Where is it? Be ready to submit. We're deleting your votes again. Great. Now, while the chairpersons keep their placards up and don't submit the votes, I'm going to do a vote by hands, okay? So I'm going to ask all of those in favor to just hand. And all the ones against. Abstentions. Absent. I'm kidding. I do think that I have I do think that I have the conclusion, but chairpersons, submit so we can check it. So we're still waiting for the 15th, but quite clearly I can already announce that the motion for resolution by the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs 3 has passed. Congratulations, Econ 3.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. We're now swiftly going to move on to the next debate, which is the motion for a resolution by the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy 2. And the topic reads as follows. Science and Society. With citizen science listed as a key policy orientation under the current Horizon 2020 work programme for science with and for society, what should the shape of civic participation in science be at the European, national and local level, and how can it be best implemented? I would now like to ask someone from the proposing committee to come up for a proposition speech of 2 minutes. Do we have someone from the proposing committee ready to deliver the speech? Yes, excellent, you're recognized.
So, dear President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests and fellow delegates, my name is Maria and I'm the representative of ITRE 2 committee. I affirm the fact that nowadays our world requires science as an inextricable part of our life. Science leads contemporary world to its further development and increases opportunities to solve worldwide issues. Modern problems require modern solutions. That is why the bunches of new science, in our case, keep on appearing and developing. Before this session, all of my committee members received 2 questions. What is citizen science to you? What do you want the citizen science in Europe to look like? Actually, both of them are difficult to answer because there is no exact definition of citizen science. Even from our resolution, you will find out about discrepancies that exist between various definitions of citizen science, resulting in incomplete understanding of its potential. So we decided to come up with our own vision of it, clearly represented in our resolution. We have based it on goals and truths which consider to be paramount for image of citizen science, to provide legal support for all the data collected by scientists, to encourage citizens in engaging citizen science because of its beneficial potential, to raise awareness of its importance, to make it available and accessible for every citizen. These are our main points, and we suggest you to enter a dialogue with us, which we hope will lead you to confirm our resolution. We are grateful for you to cooperation, and we are sure that together we will achieve our goals, erase all boundaries, and discover new horizons. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Maria. I would now like to open the floor for position speeches. If we have any committees willing to give position speeches, keep those placards in the air. Thank you very much. The two committees we will recognize for the position speeches are DRA 2 and EMPL. You may make your way to the podium.
Honorable members of the board, dear delegates, I, as a representative of Committee DRA 2, am here to say that while we found many good points in this resolution, at the same time, we also want to state that to our mind, it lacks one very important thing, which is certainty. Let me start from the beginning. In the OC4A, for example, it is mentioned that citizen science research projects should follow certain guidelines or, if not, be denied. But at the same time, I didn't find any other mention of the said guidelines, which is one of the proofs of my main point. Going on, if we look at IC on the letter C, we see that the main point reasonably raised is that the main strength of citizen science research project is gathering of data. But at the same time, looking at the OC4.B, we see that the committee proposes that the data collected through such projects should not be seen as legitimate, which raises the question, what is the point of it then? Even more so, if we, following the OC1, propose that these research projects should be conducted by scientists through only the use of general public as significant contributors, why should we question the main legitimacy of such projects? Even more on, looking at the OC9, how can we present awards for significant discoveries if the data is not legitimate? And to conduct this, looking at the promotion points as OC6 or 8, we mostly find them plausible. At the same time, OC11 arises certain questions, as do why should the European Commission sponsor such specific citizen group as influencers, and how and what should it specifically be done. So while we want to congratulate ITRE2 with raising some very plausible points, at the same time, we would suggest overlooking parts of them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my fellow Europeans. Before I begin, let me extend my appreciation to the many European friends, colleagues, members of the European Youth Parliament, and distinguished guests from many organizations joining us today. The committee ITRE2 came up with a resolution that has many solutions in it, as well as the hard work and dedication of many Europeans. Most people say that the 21st century is the century of science and technology. Today, we do almost all our work with the help of science and technology. In modern times, the clean growth of a country cannot be imagined without science, and technology has taught us the modern way of life. Public engagement with science describes intentional, meaningful interactions, which is basically mutual learning between public and professors from universities, for example. The resolution proposed by ITRE2 covers all fields and gives a really clear message that science and technology actually brings revolution to our lives, but memory, tradition, and myth frame our response. This is why civic participation is crucial for every single European citizen. Integrating people to the science has become a big motivation for our nations, the European Union, of course, yet we seem paralyzed to respond. I can say that the solution definitely covers all the areas on the agenda, such as addressing the long-term solutions, international cooperation, and such. Let me be clear. We are more secure than ever against the technological issues of the last decade, but we are less prepared than ever for those that will find us in the next. For example, the lack of civic participation. At this very second, we face a choice as Europeans. Either shape the world around us by having a high percentage of civic participation in science, or get shaped by it cruelly. As long as I'm a member of the European Youth Parliament, I will do everything I can to follow the path of science, because the science is the most reliable guide in life, which I learned from Atatürk, the founder of the Republic of Turkey. And in closing, to thank each of those who day-to-day worked so hard to integrate the European society into science and serve our nations. Thank you for everything you did. I invite the European Youth Parliament to vote in favor of this resolution. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Long live Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both Ita and Teresa. Next, I'm going to go back to the proposing committee for a response to those position speeches. ITRE2, are you ready to respond from the floor? Fantastic. ITRE2, you're recognized.
First of all, I would like to start in the wrong order and talk about the second speaker and thank them profoundly for their clarity on this issue and our resolution. I don't see much to talk about in terms of it. I'd just like to support their statement and thank them for it. Then I'd like to move on to the first speaker and clarify that we recognize the data collected from citizen science should be legitimate, and when it's mentioned in 4b as saying it shouldn't be legitimate, it's a reference to the OC4, which says that they should follow the protocols laid out by the European Commission, and if they don't follow those protocols, it would be deemed illegitimate. On top of that, we would like to state that the second comment of if it's conducted by scientists, why wouldn't it already be considered legitimate? Well, the EU currently doesn't recognize any citizen science as legitimate in terms of using it in legislation. So our arguments are that we should increase its legitimacy because it's already being conducted by scientists and it's not considered legitimate. So we want to increase its legitimacy to be legitimate. And in order to do that, we had to set up protocols and new legislation because the fact that it's conducted by scientists already is obviously not enough for the EU. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Cameron. I'd now like to open the floor for the first round of open debate. We will be starting with draw 2.
Thank you for recognizing. I have concern on 5th OC. I firmly believe that citizen science requires basic education. So could you please specify which grade are you planning to teach children citizen science? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next 2 points we're taking will come from ITRE 3 and Econ 3, respectively. So let's go to ITRE 3 first.
Thank you for recognizing me. Could you please clarify what you mean by defining citizen science in OC1? Because it's not possible to have a common legal definition of it, since every member country has different legal definitions for these kinds of things, like, for example, consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to Econ 3. Oh, apologies, there is a direct response. Apologies, can I just see your, it's Libe, so we'll go to Libe for a direct response.
Hi, just building on that, as it's a legal definition, yeah, it would need to be made in a court of law, so perhaps if the proposing committee could just give clarification on what exact institution they would like to give the definition, and even if that, it would be quite questionable, because I presume it would be down to the court, like the European Court of Justice, something that, to make it in a case, then it would have to be followed as precedent. So if they could just clarify that point, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luke, for that first use of a direct response. Now let's go to Econ 3.
So regarding clause number 11, can you further specify how exactly will Leonardo DiCaprio be an influencer in citizen science projects?
Thank you very much. The next 2 points we are going to take. Oh, okay. There is a direct response from NV2, so we'll go there first. NV2, Europe.
While the Committee on Environment and Health and Consumers Protection number 2 agrees, we would also like to ask, considering the fact that the social media in general goes to a more not like or follow based direction, how could such a method improve the situation presented in the topic?
Thank you very much. I'll now take the direct response from ITRE 2.
Thank you. We would like to say that one of the main goals of citizen science is to get as many citizens active as possible, and most citizen science research needs masses of people to participate. And by getting influencers to talk about the issue and participate in projects and promote them, we're expanding the amount of people that are exposed to citizen science to larger amounts of people in order to get people to participate in citizen science on a larger scale from new kinds.
Thank you very much. Oh, there seems to be another direct response from ITRE 1. Let's go there first.
Thank you. So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, although there are influencers, let's say in climate change, but what about those experts that have actually devoted their lives into working upon something that they know? So how can you justify that on the one hand, they cannot have the effect that the influencers can have? I mean, they can be both, so I think that we should consider that and focus on the fact that science is science and we need accuracy in that. We can't have uncertainties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go to NV. Oh, okay. Oh, Dra, do you have a direct response? Yes? Okay, we'll go to you first.
Sorry. No, it's not working. Can I? So unfortunately, world where we live in are not as much respected influencers as Leonardo DiCaprio is. And I firmly believe his participation will motivate people to be involved in citizen science. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much on the exchange on that particular clause. I'm sure the proposing committee will further address it in their response to the round, but if we could now maybe have some, okay. And there's another direct response from Econ 1.
Thank you. Wouldn't it be better to use some Europe celebrity, let's say influencer, than American one? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I said, I'm sure the proposing committee will address these issues in the round. So now if we could perhaps have some points focusing on other aspects of the resolution, that would be great. And for that, we will first go to NB1.
I have a point about clause 13. So in clause 13, you address scientists in charge of citizen science, but I find this to be a bit vague, and I don't really see why individual scientists across the EU would somehow be in charge of citizen science and organize these workshops on an EU-wide scale. So could you maybe clarify the actor for this OC? I also think working with NGOs and educational institutions could be more effective, and I suggest you maybe amend the actor you asked to organize these workshops to something more concrete. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melly. Now we'll go back to the proposing committee to address some of the issues in that round. So ITRA 2, if you're ready, great, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you for all the points that were brought during this round of debate. And I would like to address the concerns about OC5. And to this, we do not want to address any specific grade, and we will leave it up to the member states to decide when they find it adequate to integrate it into the school curriculum. Then, the concerns about OC1 is that we want to create a European definition that can be used for the legislation that is not yet established. And for questions about the definition that we established, I would like you to refer to our fact sheet where we clarified what citizen science is in our eyes. Then there were a lot of concerns about OC11. And I want to state that a main problem of citizen science is that we do not reach enough people, and not enough people are educated about it. So we thought that it would be interesting to use social media in another way and ask influencers, not limited to Leonardo DiCaprio, that have a say and will be listened to reach as many people as possible that that also like maybe are not primarily interested in science but can get the opportunity to become a fan of it. Then OC4, the concerns about OC4 would be, okay, no, we answered already to that. And okay, then still about OC11 is that we don't want to limit it only to celebrities, but we are concerned that scientists may not have this reach to the mainstream society, and that therefore we wanted to try it with like influential people like actors or activists, such as Leonardo DiCaprio.
Great, thank you very much, Val, for those clarifications. We'll now start the next round with a point from Draw 1.
Thanks for recognizing me. I have a question about OC 10A and 9. I don't really understand why grades and prizes would be a good idea in the field of science where the work is done around interest and curiosity. So enough for the prize and grade from the work they have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll next go to IMCO, after which we'll take a point from Econ 2. IMCO, you're recognized.
I can see that you're taking into consideration personal data of the citizen scientist, but you failed to mention how exactly you would ensure the security of the personal data of the subjects in the research. Thank you.
Thank you. As promised, let's go to Econ 2. After that, we'll be taking a point from Inter.
Thank you, Honourable Board, for the recognition. My name is Nazla, and I'm from Econ 2. I would like to congratulate the Proposer Committee for their hard work and draw attention to Clause 9, which suggests the creation of a grading platform for citizen scientists. However, the clause does not specify the actual expectation of the committee from such a creation and does not actually explain how the platform is going to be monitored. We encourage the committee to amend the clause and specify the scope of the platform, whether it's going to be an online platform and how actually those scientists are going to be graded and who's going to be in charge of the grading system and criteria. Because if they do not release transparent information regarding the way the system is going to function, it will end up causing disparity and discouragement among the scientists, which is the opposite of the actual purpose of the Proposer Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looks like we have a direct response from AFET. You are recognized.
Thank you. I'm Jakob from Slovenian delegation. I would like to bear in mind that word that you mentioned, monitored. So has the proposing committee considered the fact that we are currently living in an alternative facts kind of world where everyone can kind of claim their truth? So how will you monitor your citizen scientists where everyone can claim themselves to be a scientist and therefore claiming their own truth? Thank you.
And as promised, we'll go to Inter now.
Hello, this is Labiba Abdul from the Finnish delegation. Great resolution from the ITRE committee. However, I believe that operative clause 4, subclasses A, C, and E are completely contradictory. On one hand, citizens cannot be required to be familiar with definitions and guidelines on good scientific practice, and on the other, researchers having to act as ethical watchdogs simply does not foster equality between the parties involved. How does one enforce the professional ethics of researchers in citizen science without taking a paternalistic approach? I fail to see how a simple questionnaire consists of enough transparency required for participants of citizen science projects to fully consent, and I also fail to see how one cannot discriminate on the basis of categorical labels when numerous sectors of science requires exactly this for participation. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Labiba. And now we'll take a final point in this round, and I will take it from ITRE 3. Apologies, can you maybe try a different microphone? I don't think that one's working particularly well, thank you.
In ICJ, you mentioned the possible skepticism that professional scientists could have towards citizen scientist projects. In OC8, your solution allows direct contact between professional scientists and citizen scientists, but you didn't address the skepticism by the career scientists towards citizen science. Could you please address this?
Great, thank you very much. We'll now go back to ITRE 2 for a response to that round of points. You seem to be holding a placard of personal. Does that mean you want to hear the latest point repeated? Okay, apologies. ITRE 3, can you please repeat?
In ICJ, you mentioned the possible skepticism that professional scientists could have towards the citizen scientist projects. In OC8, your solution allowed direct contact between professional scientists and citizen scientists, but not the skepticism towards the career scientists, by these career scientists towards citizen science. Could you please clarify this?
Thank you. I think that was very clear now. So ITRE 2, if we could please have your response to this round of points, that would be great. Are you ready? Yes, fantastic. You're recognized.
Thank you for the questions. I would like to start from the question about OC number 9. Scientific awards are already awarded en masse for different researchers, so why not citizen science? It can motivate more citizen science. Regarding question about OC number 10, validating statistics can help increase citizen science participation, since over 90% don't repeat participation. About question about 4B, 95% of data in the Netherlands EU is conducted by citizen science. So basically the data is valid, but the questionnaire is not going to decrease the validity of it, it's just going to increase it. What else was there? Yeah, I think that was it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Keso. And now we'll start the next round by going to Econ 3.
Hello. My point is concerning OC5 and 6. They only mention solutions in educational curricula and organization around educational institutions. But what about other people which don't have direct connections with these institutions? I'm talking about education and awareness. Besides the media campaign, they aren't actually included in the target audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There appears to be another point of personal privilege. Could you maybe speak a little bit closer to the microphone this time and just really briefly repeat your point just now?
So about OC 5 and 6, they only mention solutions in educational curricula and organization around educational institutions. But what about the other people which don't have direct connections with these institutions? They, besides the media campaigns, they aren't really included in the target audience. And I'm talking about the education and the awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was very clear. We'll now go to NB1.
Okay, so I'm concerned about OC4, subclass B. I would like to point out that mistakes can be made during any stage of research process, even if they're just collecting data, and that is absolutely necessary to have a scientist supervising the entire process so they can take different factors into account before coming to a conclusion and posting the unreliable research, which has a direct impact on that scientist's career, which makes them less reliable in general. I simply believe that taking part in some short workshops is not a substitute for 5+ years of college, and while I applaud the citizens are interested in science, their research sadly cannot be considered legitimate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. We'll now take the two final points in this round from Econ 1 first, and then IMCO.
Thank you. As far as OC10 is concerned, I would like to ask that if in this platform will there also be a list of scientists certified that conduct an official research in order to secure citizen safety? Thank you.
Thank you very much. IMCO, do you still have, okay, nope. In that case, we'll go to Econ 2.
Thank you for recognizing me. I have another point on OC10. Because by giving out grades on citizens' performances in citizen science, you might be chasing people away because it can cause stress about the project instead of enjoyment. How will you prevent this, and what is the aim of giving out grades? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go back to E-Trade 2 for a response to this final round of debate. E-Trade 2, when you're ready, thank you very much. You're recognized.
So thank you for all your points. I'll try to reply briefly. First of all, for the point by Econ 3 regarding education for people who aren't participating in school, I would like to mention that ROC 6 suggests workshops that aren't only in schools and also just general conferences that don't take place just for students. Then for the point the last point mentioned, it was about stressing the fact that
grading might be stressful for citizens, and it's only really for motivation, so we wouldn't make strong criticism, just an overall review of their work. And then the second point made by NV1 regarding mistakes, I would like to mention that mistakes can be made by everyone, even by scientists, and that was the point of the protocol. So as long as you are following the protocols, it's just collecting data. It isn't analyzing anything, and everything is just monitored by scientists anyway. They're not conducting research on their own. Yes, I think that was it. Oh yes, also that scientists aren't supervising. Yes, who's doing it? That scientists always do supervise, so thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Stella. I'll now give the proposing committee a minute to think about whether they would like to amend their resolution or not. And then after a minute, I'll come back to you and announce any potential amendments. Thank you.
Julie.
So.
ITRA 2, if you are going to submit an amendment, we are going to be needing it quite soon. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I now have sight of the amendment that ITRA 2 would like to make to their own resolution. Guys, can I please have your attention? So, ITRA 2 will be amending clause 4 and subclause B, which will now read, not recognizing data collected through such project as legitimate if they do not follow protocols. I'm going to read that again. So 4B now reads, not recognizing data collected through such project as legitimate if they do not follow protocols. And would a member of the proposing committee now like to come up to the podium to deliver their summation speech? Yes, you are recognized.
Dear Madam President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests and fellow delegates, I am honored to be here today. I stand before you not as an expert, but as a citizen. I have a question for you. Have any of you ever taken part in a citizen science project? How many of you had heard of citizen science before today? That's what I was thinking. And that's the problem right now. Just to make it clear, we amended the OC not to change the meaning, but to make it more clear. Thank you. And with our resolution, we wanted to tackle the issue of an inactive society. As we have read and debated the problems we found together, we've also taken into consideration the things learned during the expert talk. I hope you understand the solutions we came up with. We wanted to optimize citizen science at the EU level for the elevation of workspaces in general, putting pressure on the concept of inclusivity and the need for standard operational procedures for the implementation of programs such as the Gender Equality Plan. We have called upon the Education, Audiovisual and Culture Executive Agency and the European Citizen Science Association to help in the sight of a more polished educational system and to increase awareness of the current situation while also including all member states in the process. We want to close the gap between scientists and citizens. You might have a vision of science being a distant factor in your life. Without scientific development, we just have to imagine where we'll be. Therefore, we were emphasizing the importance of everyone taking part in the process of research to reach new dimensions of knowledge. Also, thank you all for the constructive criticism. We took everything into consideration and we truly believe that this is for the best. Just as I started my speech quoting Leonardo DiCaprio, I want to end it that way as well by reminding the following. Only you and you alone can change the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andre. I will now again give you a minute for the chairs to collect the votes. Again, same system as last time. Please do not submit them until we have taken a show of hands. So collect them and be ready to submit. Then submit after I've taken a vote by a show of hands. Thank you.
No se oye.
Right, okay. Thank you. So I'll now take the vote by show of hands. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. And those against? And any abstentions? Right. We will have to verify that to make sure. So chairs, please submit the final vote counts, just so we can double check that. Right, thank you very much. I'm delighted to announce that the resolution has passed. Congratulations, ITRE 2. I will now pass on to Jago.
I'm going to do a little energizer now, and I'm going to invite my glamorous assistant, Realdo, to the stage to help me. Everyone stand up, please. Don't move anywhere, just stand up. This is a low movement energizer. Okay, right. We're going to do a coin flip now. And this isn't a proper coin because it doesn't have heads and tails. But where I come from, it has heads and tails on it. So if you think the coin's going to land on heads, put it on your head, hands on head. Tails, put it on your waist. And if you get it wrong, you have to sit down. And there's going to be a winner eventually. Okay, make your bets now. Heads or tails? No cheating, I'll know. Realdo, please flip the coin. It's heads. Sit down if you said tails. They all say tails never fails, but we're going to go again. Place your bets. Tails. Sit down if it was heads. Don't cheat. Make your bets. Flip the coin. Tails. Sit down if you said heads. Place your bets again. Miller's definitely cheating. Flip the coin, Realdo. Tails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Come up to the front if you're still standing. Oh. Feel free to just line up there. Okay, guys. When you're there, place your bet. Heads or tails? Realdo, flip the coin. Graceful. That's tails. Go back and sit down, if it wasn't. Place your bets, guys. Flip the coin. Heads. Down to the last three. It's getting tense. It's getting heated. Let's find out their names, ladies and gentlemen. What's your name, sir?
My name's Edwin.
And is this a dream come true for you?
Yes.
How long have you been dreaming of this moment?
Ever since I was born, this is why I came here.
Emotional stuff. What's your name, sir?
Nika.
And how long have you been training for this?
For my whole time.
Lots of mental games? Yeah, absolutely. What's your name, sir?
Ida.
How do you rate your chances?
I don't know.
What do you think of your fellow contestants?
No comment.
Right answer. Place your bets. Flip the coin, Realdo. Oh, so graceful. Heads. Okay, thank you very much, guys. We're going to go into our next debate now. I'll hand it back to the board. He's got my 20 cents. Give it back, Realdo. Who's got my 20 cents? Okay, thanks, everyone. Back to the board.
Thank you so much, Jago and Realdo, about this quick energizer. I hope you're all feeling a bit more lifted up, as we have one more motion for resolution, and then we will go to coffee break. But before that, we do have NV2 waiting. So with no further ado, if I could have some silence. Yes, perfect. So with no further ado, I would like to read the motion for resolution by the Committee on Environment, Public Health and Food Safety 2. The topic reads as follows. Be careful what you medicate for. With antimicrobial resistance being responsible for an estimated 33,000 deaths every year in Europe, how should member states and the EU respond to the overuse of antibiotics? Before going to the proposing committee to hold your proposition speech, we have a video messenger by the Commissioner Andriukaitis, which would like to say a few words about the topic. NV2 video from the Commissioner.
Dear participants of the 90th International Session of the European Youth Parliament, it is with pleasure, as always, that I address you, the young people of Europe, passionate about building a brighter tomorrow together. Today you have a very important job. You will discuss in committees what a Europe of the future should look like and how we can cooperate to meet the challenges facing our continent and planet, to sail toward new horizons. As a word of encouragement, I would like to mention a few achievements in the areas of health and food safety during my time as European Commissioner, which I hope will lay foundations for a more sustainable future. As a full EU competence, our action in terms of food safety has been both visible and direct, setting some of the highest standards globally. In 2015, we adopted a circular economy action plan where food waste prevention was an important element. I was proud to oversee revised legislation for waste management and measurement and the introduction of an European Union platform on food losses and food waste. During my mandate, I was also part of a high-level food waste network called Champions 12.3. Our common mission is to ensure food waste is halved by 2030. I am a great believer in power of action as a key ingredient for progress, and it is inspiring to see you all today taking up this mantle. Another great achievement was close work between EU institutions to revise the general food law, meaning we will have greater transparency in the science behind food safety. And we do need it desperately because the trust in science is a fundamental foundation for our evidence-based policy making. Equally, they have made great strides toward both the sustainable and safe-of-use pesticides, introducing regulations to ensure they have no harmful effects on animals such as bees. We must all continue to be conscious of the importance of science and research in securing innovation and promoting the truth in this age of fake news. This could not be more relevant for my health portfolio, which, although is a member state competence, is by nature a cross-border issue. Take, for example, the upsetting rise in vaccine-preventable disease such as measles. They have taken measures to ensure countries can work together to prevent further spread of disinformation and outbreaks. In 2019, we saw the first meeting of the Coalition of Vaccine Health Workers, and in September, I am delighted to announce a global summit on vaccination that will take place on 12th of September. Another great challenge we face is the antimicrobial resistance and overuse of antibiotics, responsible for an estimated 33,000 deaths per year in Europe. To tackle this constructively, the Commission in 2018 established a One Health Network, where national experts working in human and animal health and environmental sectors share best practice and innovations. We have facilitated many other supports for member states to face challenges such as disease prevention and health promotion together. On tobacco, there will be a track and trace system to combat illicit trade and calls for greater research into the effects of e-cigarettes have been launched. On obesity, we learned that to call for a healthy lifestyle and school milk and fruit schemes have been retained. I now hand over to you, to young active citizens of Europe, and encourage you all to be champions of the future. Do not be afraid to turn debate into actions and action into progress. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. I hope this video kind of got you into the mood of what will be discussed. Before I recognize you for your proposition speech, there is a friendly amendment on the resolution. If you could just all go to the first category, making the EU a best practice region. There are no clauses 4 and 5, but there are other subclauses A and B. That was a typo mistake. And the rest of the clauses is 6, 7, and 8. They will be addressed as they are. So we're not changing all the numbers of the resolution, just crossing out 4 and 5, and instead putting A and B. Good. Is the proposing committee ready to have your speech? Yes, and V2, you're recognized.
Dear Ms. President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests and fellow delegates, I'm Iris van der Raura presenting to you the resolutions of NV2. AMR, antimicrobial resistance, responsible for 33,000 deaths per year only in Europe. And by 2050, the number will raise and increase to 10 million deaths per year on a global scale. Due to several reasons, antimicrobial resistance took a seat in the back stages, because other challenges like climate change, the migration crisis, and the rise of extreme right parties seemed more alarming towards our societies. AMR is a natural process that will always be there. It will always be present because of his independence on human activities. However, it is boosted by the mis- and overuse of antibiotics. But we believe, NV2, that by making the EU a best practice region, through recognizing and focusing on concepts that already exist, and by trying to improve them, we will take steps towards an effective AMR policy. We are aware of the importance regarding international collaboration and sharing of data to strengthen and to further develop the surveillance system. One of the biggest problems is the large amounts of misinformation and too little awareness. In order to solve this problem, we need to promote and to improve regarding the understanding and awareness of AMR through education, training, and effective public communication programs. It's clear AMR is a life-threatening challenge. That's why we invite the European Commission to allocate funds to do research and development in alternative treatments, and take into account the importance of the pay and play approach. AMR is a threat to you, to me, to all of us. So remember my words, remember our resolution, and remember AMR does not belong on the backstages of our global agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iris, for the speech. I would like now, before opening the floor again for the position speeches, to remind you all that these microphones are quite expensive and they're not here for us to play around, but rather leave them as they are and try to even speak up if they're quite far away from where you are. Okay? Thank you. Opening the floor to position speeches now. Okay. So we will have one from INTA, followed by ITRE 3. Just a quick reminder, you have 2 minutes. I'll tap in 10 seconds before the end.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, members of the board, fellow delegates, and distinguished guests. I was told that this had to be a purely negative speech, but I do need to get this off my chest first. I applaud NV2 for their truly innovative ideas for antimicrobial disposal methods mentioned in OCs 8 and 11. I think they seem truly effective and really worth your attention. However, the rest of the resolution seems to lack a bit of depth and doesn't delve into the technicalities of the topic, failing to include crucial actors such as the ECDC and EFSA. Both are NGOs that have a history of working together with the EU on this topic. It seems almost criminal not to include them. The proposing committee also suggests stricter regulations and consequences for the use of antimicrobials in livestock, OC10. However, NV2 has seriously neglected these same preventative measures in other sectors. Not only farms need to be reformed, hospitals and production facilities also desperately need to be cleaned in order to prevent the spreading of AMR. MRSA and other superbugs, as they are called, are a serious danger in less developed nations if the place where antimicrobials are used and produced aren't cleaned properly. I would propose settling for some serious standards, either by consulting the ECDC or EFSA, just as they have suggested in OC10 for these same facilities. In all, although there are some seriously good OCs in this that have been come up with by this committee, I find the resolution somewhat trivial at some points, and I find it a pity that important actors and problems have been left out. Thank you.
Honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. My name is Ziman, and on the behalf of the ITRE 2 committee, I would like to congratulate you. While the resolution is well thought out and has an innovative approach to the problem, there are a few issues that we have encountered regarding your resolution. Firstly, we would like to point out that in OC number 3, subclause A, it is very unclear. It does not clarify the solution, and we would like to ask for a clarification. Secondly, in your 5th OC, you urge for an addition of the environmental aspects of AMR, but yet do not state who would make sure it's carried out. Next, we would like to point out that the issue of doctors misusing antibiotics has not been mentioned, yet cases of antibiotics being used to treat viruses occur every day and directly influence the most vulnerable members of society, that being children and senior citizens. Furthermore, as a new method of treatment, you mentioned phage. Phage display is used for creation and selection of synthetic antibodies that target tumor surface proteins. But the major issue isn't related to complex issues. It's related to everyday occurrences, which is what most antibiotics are being prescribed for, particularly in relation to children and older people. We would also like to add to the fact that most people are not aware of different ways to treat viruses to bacteria, and lectures aimed at solely high school students are simply not enough, and would like instead to propose an amendment where such lectures are mandatory during hospital visits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iman and Willy, for these position speeches. Now, if the proposing committee is ready to answer these in 1 minute and a half. Yes, and V2 get recognized.
We want to thank you, INTA and INFRA for such an amazing position speeches. However, we do not agree with everything. I'll start with INTA. So we would highly recommend reading all of the footnotes. There you can find ECDC and other NGOs mentioned. We also want to clarify that 70% basically AMR is caused mostly by overuse and misuse of antibiotics in a livestock sector and not human health sector. That's why we are focusing on that. Also, they are talking about low-income countries, which are in a danger zone, and we actually have an OC number 13, which basically suggests a framework for non-EU countries, because we realize that this is a very significant issue, and this is a very significant issue, and we are trying to combat it not in Europe. So yeah, and we are not feeling like we are I'm sorry, any problems, we are not leaving any problems out. Talking about ITRE, I would like to clarify our OC3 and subclause A. So basically, the regular reviews, we mean midterm and post-term reviews. And this OC is mentioning the human health sector, which basically contains misuse and overuse of antibiotics by doctors. And also, we address that in OC number 14, which basically encourages all member states to join the GLAS, which basically surveils the work of doctors and basically the overall AMR situation in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille, for these clarifications. We will now move on to the open debate. Please don't flip the placards if you want us to see them. Thank you. We shall start with the Committee on Employment. Do you still have a point, employment? Okay, then no employment. We will go to Econ 3.
Oh, thank you for the recognition. I wanted to ask you regarding the OC number 2, because you mentioned taking legal action, but you don't specify the legal action, so I would like to know what steps are you going to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Econ 3, now we go to INTA, followed by DRUA 1. INTA, you're recognized.
Honorable board, thank you for the recognition. I want to direct a question for the second dossier. So the idea that you present is right and obvious that it should be done, but it's missing a lot. Can you answer the questions how and when? And also, it seems too aggressive. I encourage you to use your supranational power to create a helpful and constructive ground. Every member state should respect the laws, but it's not the right method which does not include the investigation for reasons behind member states that don't apply the laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arda. We will go now to DRUA 1, followed by ITRE 1.
Honourable members of the board, thank you for the floor. Regarding the second dossier, you are calling upon the European Commission to take legal action towards member states who do not follow EU legislation. Well, practically, you can't do that. You can't do such thing because most human health policies are not neither exclusive nor shared competencies of the EU. EU just supports, coordinates and supplements most human health policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Now we're going to ITRE 1, followed by ITRE 3.
Okay, thank you. So regarding OC7, why would the digital single market block online pharmacies when one of their main achievements was ending unjustified geo-blocking? Thank you.
Thank you very much. ITRE 3.
Thank you. In OC21, you supported the pay-to-play approach for antibacterial drugs. Don't you think that this could turn these drugs in an exclusive for rich people, leaving those in socio-economic background without?
Thank you very much. We shall have 2 more points for this round of debate coming from IMCO and DRUA 2.
Thank you for the recognition. As you recognize the point of that the agricultural sector is a big problem. However, your OC9 concerning it is vague, as you just state guidelines of a suggestion concerning a problem which could be tackled more concretely. That would be in human medicine. We have an intermediary institution, which is the pharmacy, which sells the medicine to the people, as the doctor does not. But in the veterinarian sector, veterinarian medicine, we don't have such an institution, and doctors can directly sell antibiotics to the farms. Therefore, they have a high incentive to boost their profit by selling antibiotics unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, DRUA 2, before going back to the proposing committee. DRUA 2, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. We'd like to raise concern over the OC12, as you suggest addressing the G20 countries, and you'd like to enhance cooperation within this very unit. However, if we want to go international, and if we want to broaden the scope of countries, and if we want to enhance cooperation in the world, which is your stance, we could do that under the auspices of the World Health Organization, which is already contributing to the research about AMR, and it will certainly be a more rational choice for all of us.
Thank you very much, DRUA 2. And now going back to the proposing committee, are you ready to answer this round of debate? Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I'd first like to address the questions made by DRA, INTA, and Econ 3 regarding OC2. And this issue is actually included in public health, which is a shared competence. So if needed, the EU could bring these countries to court if they are not following EU law, because this is actually legally binding. Moving on to questions by ITRE 1 about the blocking of online pharmacies that are distributing antibiotics without prescription. It's illegal to take antibiotics without prescription. So this blocking is a blocking of an illegal action. Now moving on to question by IMCO on IC9. And we are only providing guidelines because there is already a ban coming into law in 2022. That's why we're providing guidelines until that ban comes into law. And I would like to address ITRE 3 about pay to play. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact sheet in order to fully understand what this concept means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elise. Now we will go to the second round of debate, starting off with employment, followed by NV1.
Okay, so on OC2. So a big reason, part of the why doctors overprescribe antibiotics is because they're using defensive medicine, which is a type of medicine where you essentially prescribe as much as you can to stop the fear of you getting sued by one of your patients because they think you didn't treat them well enough, right? So the big problem here is not that doctors can't do medicine correctly, but it's because they're too afraid of getting sued. So in OC2, where you're basically further threatening them to get sued but through their health systems, we say that that's only going to lead them to overprescribe even more. So the big problem you probably have to fix first before you go after doctors prescribing is to fix the laws suing the doctors unnecessarily first. And in that case, you'll stop their fear and you'll stop the overprescription. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Panim. And now, as promised, going to NV1, followed by ITRE 2.
Thank you for recognizing me. So regarding OC number 11, I do not believe that an introduction of smart trash bins is the most adequate solution for expired antibiotics. What you suggest would mean the useless creation of bins for a purpose that can easily be solved by returning the expired antibiotics to the pharmacy in which it has been acquired, or even brought to NGOs such as SIGRE that ensures proper environmental management of antibiotics in their packaging. In conclusion, why suggest a solution to a problem that already has a solution nowadays?
Thank you very much. NV1. Ooh. I'm sorry, Inta, but Econ 1 was first all the way at the back, so Econ 1 we are recognized for this direct response.
Thank you. So I agree that the point number 11 has to be specified because we don't know what's a smart trash bin. I mean, that sounds like an innovative idea, but yeah, what is that exactly? And also, if you just create trash bins in the public areas, the ecology is not going to be sufficient because people can just throw another things that are not exactly the expired by antibiotics. So that has to be somehow overseen. And I would also suggest to make use of the packages of the antibiotics because it's mostly made of plastic.
I'm sorry, but I have to cut you here because these are 2 points and you don't take advantage of the direct response to just insert another one. So your point is on the smart trust bench. Thank you so much. And now we will go, as promised, to ITRE 2.
Hello. Oh, thank you for the recognition. I have a question regarding ICM. It says that vaccines and vaccines development is gonna significantly reduce the development of AMR. And my question is, how do you connect vaccines like with bacteria? Because vaccines are actually to prevent diseases caused by viruses, and that's what my question is about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. NV2, yes. I'm sorry, all the way at the back, committee, I cannot see because you have done some things in your placard, but NV2 was the first in direct responding. So yes, NV2, you're recognized.
So there are bacterial diseases that can be cured by vaccines. And by taking the vaccine, we all know that it prevents us from getting the disease. And if we don't get the disease, we don't need to get antibiotics. And if we don't need to get antibiotics, there's no risk of developing AMR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will go to Econ 2, followed by Libe.
Thank you for recognizing us. My question is regarding the OC number 8, about the proposing regulation for the pharmaceutical industry in order to reduce antibiotic pollution. As many European pharmaceutical companies use manufacturers in developing countries, allowing them to profit from cheap labor and weak environmental regulation, just proposing a regulation for pharmaceutical industry to reduce antibiotic pollution will be useless, as there needs to be a clear guidelines and clarifications about consequences of not following the guidelines. And how will you suggest the member states to agree such regulations? Because proposals to monitor pharmaceutical companies in a mandatory environmental risk assessment have all been discarded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia. And now we will go to Libe, followed by AFET.
Thank you for the recognizing. Having in mind that investing in new model treatment would cost $37 billion, as you estimated, and having in mind that it can take even more than 10 years, I think we should tackle at first the environmental problems, because that's an urgent issue. And you do have a clause talking about that 8th and 11th, but the major problem is that our organisms cannot metabolize all the antibiotics we are giving, we are treating the patient with. More than 90% cannot be metabolized. So I think that we should take our attention to water purification. And I see no clause talking about that, especially in the hospitals when they can go directly to the water there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Libe. Now we will go to AFET and then back to the proposing committee to answer this round. So AFET, you're recognized.
Thank you. So as previously was raised this point that the smart trash bins were raising some concern as people can throw in other things besides antibiotics. So I believe that we should include like pharmacies in this. So I would like to propose that we ask the member states to implement a system of returning old or expired antibiotics to the pharmacy and then getting some sort of benefit from returning the antibiotics properly. So this would then encourage the people to get rid of the antibiotics properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AFET. Now, as promised, NV2, are you ready to answer this round of debate? Yes, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you for all the wonderful points that have been made up till now. I'm going to start addressing them in the backwards order, because we have to talk a lot about the trash cans. But firstly, I would like to draw your attention to the point made by Econ 2 for OC8. ROC mentions actually that the regulation for the pharmaceutical industry should be used in order to track cases of antibiotic pollution, because in the EU, antibiotic pollution is one of the main causes that spreads AMR. And antibiotic pollution is caused by none other than pharmaceutical companies. We just want to, first of all, inspect those and observe whether they do or do not respect the regulations that we would want to impose, so that mainly the water sources that are around pharmaceutical companies and their factories are not polluted. Second of all, the point made by Libe with the $37 billion and 10 years for developing a new antibiotic, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that unfortunately penicillin has been discovered recently to be inefficient against some bacteria, so we consider the fact that developing new antibiotics and new medicine and new eventually alternatives to antibiotics is prioritized towards the environment, as first and foremost, if we do not discover new methods of medicine, we will not be able to realize some basic operations in the future. And last but not least, our favorite subject, the trash cans. So I don't know, there's been a lot of committees that have asked us about this. The smart trash cans for antibiotics would fulfill the same purpose that biohazard trash cans fulfill. In case you did not know, in hospitals and other places where people work with blood and so far and so on, there are certain trash cans where you have to dump all the waste that has been used in surgery and so far and so on, so that it gets burnt, stopping, God forbid, infections and spread of infections. That's what we want to try with the smart trash cans for antibiotics. They would be probably first placed in pharmacies, because that would be like the perfect place where people can come and, you know, talk medicine, and then maybe in the future develop the idea. And last but not least, what we gathered from your points is that you want us to recycle antibiotics. You can't. They have to be destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Razvan, for these clarifications, especially with the trash bin. So if we can actually move on a bit from this point, I think it's quite clear what they're doing and where they be placed and everything. So moving on to the third round of debate, and potentially the last, depending on how much you want to discuss about this topic, we shall have a point from Econ 1, followed by Econ 3. But before that, before going to Econ 1, I just want to mention again the point about the microphones, and if you don't have one close to your desk, just stand up, and we have organizers going around with microphones which will assist you at any moment. So instead of getting them around, just stand up, microphones will be right there. Thank you. So Econ 1.
Okay, so thank you for recognition. So I have a point regarding OC 18. There are new methods mentioned and specified in the footnotes. So first of all, these methods are not actually new, and they have been investigated for quite a long time. And the second problem is that scientists still don't agree if these methods are actually effective and safe. So I think what should be done only encouragement of further research of these methods, but surely not approval or encouragement of usage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Libe, your direct response is recognized.
Thank you for your recognition. I would just like to add that by just approving such methods such as phages, who have not been too researched yet, we risk patient safety because we don't know exactly what the side effects might be. In fact, the example mentioned here, which is phages, it has been tested to a person who had CF, and she got a bacterial infection, and the doctors gave her less than 1% of a chance to live. So it's not very researched yet, and I suggest that, as my fellow delegate said, that there should be more research on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this direct response. And we will now go to Econ 3, followed by Ciutat 2. So Econ 3.
Okay, I would like to say something to your OC number 15,
First of all, I'd like to point out that I really support this point, which is why I've done a little bit of research on it in the last few minutes. And I came across this legislation which is mostly about banning the preventive use of antibiotic medicated feed to animals. But it also includes pretty much exactly what you're saying, like to limit the import of animal products which are not made with accordance to the EU standards. As I said, I didn't have that much time to research on it, but I would suggest you to have a look into it, as they say they would implement it in 2022. As far as I have seen, they have agreed on it, but maybe take it into consideration if you haven't already, and make an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. So now we're going to have the last point for the debate in general, which is going to come, as promised, from Droit 2.
Thank you for your recognition. My point is about OC7. I am actually worried that blocking online pharmacies, knowing that there are legitimate online pharmacies, for example in Sweden, could stop medicine democratization and therefore block antibiotics access to some individuals. Is there any other possibilities or solution to prevent an exaggerated consumption of medicine? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Droit 2. And now back to the proposing committee to answer this round of debate, which is going to be the last one as well. NV2, are you? Yep, you're recognized.
Irene, NV2. So about operative clause 20, which one was it? 18, that you said about new methods. So we combine kind of 17 with 18 about new researches. We know that phages are an old method, but that's why we put new researches. We know that we lack of new researches, and the problem why they're not being used till now in the EU is because the legislations and regulations take a lot of time, and also there has not been any evidence that phages can harm even human or animal cells until now. Where are they? So, about OC15, we know that legislations already exist, but the main problem is that countries, especially member states, do not follow them. As I know, for example, Cyprus, they overuse antibiotics on animals without, even though there are already existing regulations. So that's the main problem. That's why it's not actually the same as the already existing regulations. And lastly, about OC7, we already answered that on the previous round of one of the previous rounds of debate, and I just want to add that we know that in black market on the internet we can never achieve 100% safety. So what we need to do is make an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene, for these clarifications. I will now give you a minute, NV2, to decide if you want an amendment on your resolution, while the rest of you can still contemplate on what was said in debate. NV2, are we waiting for something?
Yes.
No amendment? Amazing. So with that, I would like to call for a member of your committee to hold, yes, the summation speech. You're recognized.
Honorable Board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. 10 million. That's the amount of yearly deaths there will be in 2050 due to antimicrobial resistance, which then will be the leading cause of death, surpassing the predicted deaths by cancer by 1.8 million. We are currently creating resistant microbes that are outnumbering our antibiotics. Due to the lack of focus on the agriculture sector, where antibiotics are administered to animals just in case an animal gets sick, instead of practicing good welfare for the animals. But not only that, also the mis- and overuse of antibiotics in the health sector, where, based on a survey carried out by the Eurobarometer, 48% of the surveyed Europeans think that antibiotics are used to kill viruses, such as treating a common cold. We cannot ignore the need for investments and international collaboration. Third country online pharmacies that offer antibiotics without prescriptions to EU countries, and the lack of economic incentives for investing in new antibiotics and alternative treatments. As one of my fellow delegates previously pointed out, to appeal to a businessman, you must think like a businessman. The time for a new antibiotic to enter the market is 10 to 15 years. And during this time, the need for an investment is great. The EU is already allocating a considerable amount of funding in order to push the industry forward. However, there is a need for pull mechanisms that will increase the economic gain and subsequently investment in the pharmaceutical industry. Money breeds money, and money is a businessman's friend. We have to take action now. We must improve the global regulation of antimicrobials, reduce the use of antibiotics in the agricultural sector, collaborate and share data on international level and not only with EU countries, because this is a global problem. And last but not least, we must invest in boosting research and development in order to achieve the prevention of a post-antimicrobial era. 10 million deaths by 2050, but it's not too late to change things. And since laughter is the best medicine, we as NV2 advise you to take care, not antibiotics.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheila, for this passionate summation speech. I would now quickly ask for the chairs to collect the votes again. Do not submit them, as we will again do it by show of hands. The chair who just submitted the votes, just so you know, we're deleting it. Thank you. please close the microphones? Okay, we're ready. So, I would like all of you who are in favor of this resolution to show of hand. Thank you. All of you who are against this motion for resolution? Thank you. Any abstentions? It is my pleasure to announce that the motion for the resolution by the Committee on Environment, Food Health and Safety 2 has passed. Congratulations. Well done. The chairs can still upload their votes now that we're done for the sake of the statistics. But before we go to coffee break, just a few quick announcements.
Okay, so we have coffee break now. But before you go, I just have a few announcements about the venue. So this is a super special venue, and I know you all know that and have been really appreciating it, but we just have to be super careful with how we are treating it as well. So there's no food allowed in the venue at all, except for what you have at the coffee breaks. And make sure that when you're at the coffee breaks that you stay in that room. And when you have any rubbish at the coffee break or wherever you are, just make sure to put it in the bins so that we leave it as we found the venue. And again, just a reminder about the microphones. I know it's super easy to forget that you'll put it on, but just try and turn it off whenever you're finished with it. So I also have an announcement about merchandise. If you would like some EYP merch, Maria will be selling it just at the door to the auditorium, so you can get it during the coffee break. So it's now 16:43, and we have a coffee break for 20 minutes. So I think what we're going to do is have a song when we come back in, some kind of energizer. So if you want to come for the energizer, we'll come back in 20 minutes. And if not, a few minutes after, like, be on time. Okay, enjoy your coffee break.